Hi guys, this is Gigi coming on today. I wanted to talk today about the cruise ship situation that's going on. I don't know if you all who don't cruise are aware, or those that do cruise may not know either, that there have been several fights, brawls, whatever you want to call it, on some of these cruise ships. And I have to get on here today, and I feel a wealth of knowledge concerning cruise ships. I went on my first cruise in 1969. In 1969. And my mother was part of a group called the Jolly Travelers, and we sailed every summer. We took a cruise. So comparing how things were, I'm going to share a bit about how things were then compared to how they were now. Okay, even though it's been over 50 some years, 55 years, something like that. Okay, for one thing, people back then, I mean, this applies in all areas, not just on cruises, but people back then were very, like, I would say, genteel. They were very respectful, very respectful, I'd say. And I did most of my cruising back then, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73. I was cruising on Norwegian. It was Norwegian Caribbean line at the time, okay? And things were just so very nice and everything. One thing I can remember, back then, you could go to to ship to their store, and you could buy liquor. I don't know about people buying a lot of liquor, but I remember this one lady, because I was 16 at the time, something like that. I remember a lady she bought, like, say, a fifth of rum or something like that, and she had it in her cabin. Now, that didn't mean that she was not purchasing liquor, like drinks from the various lounges on the ship. That was still going on. And may I add that those drinks back then were nice. They were very nice. Nowadays, when I've gotten drinks on the ship, they were watered down. It was ridiculous, okay? So you could buy your own liquor. You could have it in your cabin. And yeah, it was no big deal, okay? So another thing is that the people, I just think that nowadays, the cruise lines, they so nickel and dime you. And for somebody like me who was there back in the 60s, late 60s, so I can do a comparison and I can say, oh my goodness, they're selling beverage packages. They didn't do that back then, but people weren't drinking like that, okay? And if you think about it, I would ask the cruise line, when you made this idea up about having drink packages, what were you thinking about? Obviously, you were thinking about how much money you would make from having these ridiculously priced drink packages. But did you think about who you would be attracting? What age group would you be attracting to get these drink packages? Because I can't see anybody, like, in my age, I'm 72. I can't see anybody in my age group getting a drink package. So you're thinking, oh, well, they're targeting these younger folks, people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, or something like that. So I guess they weren't thinking about, well, maybe the people will drink till they're married. And then, a lot of people, when they drink a lot, what do? They want to fight. So in some ways, I think the cruise lines are reaping what they sowed, because, all they were thinking about was how much money they were going to generate, but they didn't think about the possibility of what's going on now with people drinking and wanting to fight. Also back then, there were always families that traveled together. They had little kids and things like that. But now I see, and I've traveled more recently on Royal Caribbean and Carnival, you see a lot of families, and I have observed, I haven't heard this, I have observed families wherein they would just let the kids run loose, okay? The kids running loose all over the ship. You don't see any adult supervision or anything like that. That is crazy. First of all, why would you let your child run wild and free on a ship? And the first thing, if something happens to that child, then you want to be pointing your finger at the cruise line when it's your responsibility as a parent to make sure that that child is properly supervised. I mean, I remember being on an elevator and these kids ran by, running by. And these two elderly ladies, they want to ship. They said, if I see another child, I'm going to scream. And this other lady said, if I see another child run by, I'm going to jump off the ship. I mean, it's like people nowadays are not respectful of one another on the ships. Like I said, in the past, there was always a respect, a mutual respect. You may not like the people, you don't even know these people, but it's just a common courtesy and respect. Nowadays, I don't know where that went, but it's from what I've gathered. Now, I haven't been on Virgin, and I haven't been on Princess, and I haven't been on, what's the other one? Shoot, I can't think of it. Holland America. I haven't been on any of those ships. But from my observations, like I said, as a long-term cruiser, like I said, from back to 1969, so much has changed. So much has changed. But it's more money going in the pockets of the owners of these vessels. And to me, I guess that was their only concern, because if they had looked at the big picture, they may not have gone in the direction they did with offering these beverage packages, because you reap what you sow. Tell me what you think about that. Thank you. Blessings.